What is foodborne illness? What is negligence in foods? What constitutes a food warranty? What is breach of warranty? What do the earliest laws concerning food safety say? What are the origins based on? These are the questions I'll be answering in the next few slides. Negligence in food. Negligence is the failure to exercise the level of care that a reasonable person would in a similar situation, resulting in a harm or injury to another. That is the legal explanation of negligence. Now let us apply this to food. In food, it is this and includes the failure of a business to exercise this reasonable care, leading to contaminated or unsafe food products that cause harm to consumers, unsanitary conditions, improper food handling, not following safety regulations. Even if it's only one time, someone can die. Food warranty. Food warranty is a guarantee expressed or implied that the food is safe, consumable, and wholesome. It can be written or implied by the law governing that state and the federal government. Whether it is the manufacturer or the restaurant, they are liable. Types of food warranties. Express warranty, written guarantee included in the contract or on the product packaging. It will state the specific guarantee or promises concerning the quality and standard. Implied warranty, first version, would be unwritten guarantee that comes with the sale of food. Implications are that the food is safe, good for consumption, and decent quality. Implied warranty, part two, for a particular purpose, the buyer believes that the seller's expertise in a specific food genre guarantees their choices are reliable. The seller also knows that the buyer relies on their expertise and choices. This would be particular concerning specialty places. Say you go to a bakery or a meat shop, you bought the bakery item or the meat item with the knowledge that this person has an expertise in baking, being a pastry chef or a patissier, or being at a meat shop, you know that is the meat market. So you're expecting that person to have that expertise to know if the product that they are selling you is good or not good. And if you ask them and they tell you it's good and you buy it, you're expecting that they told you the truth so that when you get home and consume it, no one would be sick. These warranties fall under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, as well as similar state laws. Breach of warranty. Product or service fails to meet the standards that were promised at purchase and or consumption. So if that meat that you bought, they told you that it was super fresh, that they just received it and it just came from, let's say, Wisconsin, and you are buying the meat and you see the color is right and you're believing that it was good. But then when you get home, by the time you get home, the meat is already gray. That tells you that that meat was not fresh, that they had place some kind of agent on it to make it turn and look red at the time that it was in the store, being kept inside of the case, so that you would believe that it was still good. You cook the meat, you consume the meat, and now you're sick. In food service, this applies to any part of the meal or service that falls short of the warranty. This includes restaurants. If you go to a restaurant, you order the meal with the thought that what they're selling you is what you're going to get, and it's not going to be contaminated or bad for you. The reason or expectation of the buyer and consumer is not met under the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC. In food service, this can lead to food poisoning. The UCC was created to make a uniform ruling and a uniform coding of food across the board, across the country, because different states, different restaurants, different people were using different ways to signify or identify items within the food industry. So to make it one uniform way so that it would be easier to deal with across the board, the government came up with the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC. Earliest food safety laws. The earliest food safety law came from King John of England in 1202. It is named the Aziz of Bread, which prohibited the adulteration, that's the mixing in of ingredients like peas or beans in the breads. This act addressed the warranty and reliability of bread makers or bakers during medieval times. It guaranteed that the weight, size, ingredients, and quality of bread sold were true and accurate. During this time, bakers would be making bread and they would tell the public that, oh, this is 1 pound loaf, and this 1 pound loaf is worth 10 talents. But when the person got it home, they found out that 1 pound loaf was not just flour, it was mixed with sawdust, it was mixed with peas, it was mixed with beans, all kinds of, things that were not just bread. So and they were not disclosed to the consumer that that's what they bought. They were told they were buying a rye bread or a flour bread, not exactly that it was mixed in with other things. In 1646, American colonists enacted a replica of the zizis of bread. This later led to the passing of the Massachusetts Act against selling unwholesome provisions in 1785. This act is believed to be the first U.S. food safety law. This act was brought on by the sales of diseased, corrupted, contagious, and unwholesome provisions to the detriment of the public. It came with the punishment of fine, imprisonment, or standing in the pillory. So, once again, we have people who are saying that they're making product for consumers to buy and consume, but they weren't at the peak of freshness. So some of these items were diseased breads. They knew the bread was no good, and they still sold it. Or even diseased meats, knowing that there might have been maggots, and they would just like their version of trying to clean it up and sell it to people anyway for consumption. So the state of Massachusetts decided to take an act against people who were doing that because it was causing a lot of foodborne illness. Food safety laws. In 1862, President Abraham Lincoln created the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, and the Division of Chemistry, which later would be called the Bureau of Chemistry in 1901. In 1906, it changed to the Food and Drug Administration, which we know as FDA today. This paved the way for the creation of food safety laws. In 1906, Pure Food and Drug Act and Federal Meat Inspection Act passed. It was given a complete overhaul revision by Congress in 1938. It was amended in 1958 to include food additives, ensuring the safety of ingredients in processing foods. Amended again in 1997, and the name changed to the Food and Drug Modernization Act. This amendment, among other changes, expanded the FDA's authority to regulate health and nutrient claims. In 1957, poultry products began being inspected, so it became the Poultry Products Inspection Act, which was mandated the inspection of poultry products in interstate commerce. So anytime anything passes state lines, it's considered interstate commerce. So the meat that would go across state lines was not being inspected across the state, only within the state. So you could get something that was brought to you across state lines, and you thought that it came to you in good form. But by the time it got to you, it may not be any good, but there's no inspection that's required because it came from another state. So this act required it to be inspected again to prove that the person transported it properly. In 2011, Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA, enacted, becoming the modern legal framework for food safety. It changed the system from being reactive, meaning we're always like figuring out, okay, where did this come from? How did this disease happen? What are we going to do about it? To foodborne illness, to being proactive and preventing it from even happening, which is where we came into with all the food laws and regulations that we know today. Changes that impact the quality and standards of products, including food. In 1938, the amendment to the Pure Food and Drug Act impacted cosmetics as well as food. It required safe tolerances set for unavoidable poisonous substances, authorizing standards of identity, quality, fill of container for foods, factory inspections, and the remedy of court injunctions to the previous penalties of seizures and prosecutions. 1949, the procedures for the appraisal of the toxicity of chemicals in food was published by the FDA. It is a guidance that gave the FDA influence over the food industry without it being legislation or specific required mandates. So between these two, one is an act and one is just it is an implemented behavior, an implemented expectation, an implemented mandate. Um, Between the two of them, they're pretty much saying that the FDA allows a certain amount of poison or a certain amount of substances to a certain line within food, within cosmetics, because it would be inevitable. They're saying it's unavoidable. So, because some are unavoidable, they're saying that, they had to regulate how much of an unavoidable amount was allowed into food and cosmetics. In 1962, JFK proclaimed the Consumer Bill of Rights. While not mainly focused on food, it stated that consumers had the right to safety, to be informed, to choose, meaning to choose what you will and will not take, and to be heard. 4 steps to food safety. Clean. You want to clean your hands, you want to clean your surface, you want to clean your environment. Make sure that whatever you're using is clean. Separate. You make sure that you do not use your vegetables with your meat. You don't put them on the same surfaces. You don't use the same utensils. You don't put them in the same bowl while doing preparation. That's called cross contamination. Cross contamination is one of the major reasons for foodborne illnesses, especially in restaurants, especially mom and pop restaurants, small places. They are more prone to have cross contamination. They usually don't have as much space, um, or as many people working there that have the legal paperwork backing and knowledge to work in food service. Not to say they can't, but they don't. Um, Cook. You want to make sure that you're cooking whatever you're cooking, vegetables or meat or grains, to the right temperature as regulated by law. Chill. Make sure that anything that needs to be cold stays cold. Anything that needs to be hot stays hot. During the cooling process, you want to make sure that you cool it properly and quickly, and then get it into a cooling area, a fridge or a freezer, to keep it so that there's no chance of microorganisms growing within the food. Tools to prevent serving bad food. Best if used by BIUB, used to determine proper date to utilize on products, that it is not automatically stated. It is the date that gives the last day of best freshness potency. Julian calendar, used to determine production date based on a code stamped on products, i.e., canned goods. Used together, all products can be dated with a BIUB date. Here we have common terminology that everyone should know. Not even if you don't work in the food industry, you should know these terminologies. Sell by. Sell by is the date that the item must be sold by the store to give you, the consumer, the best amount of time and the right amount of time to be able to consume it with that before it goes bad. Use by date. This is set by the manufacturer. And then after the manufacturer has stated this, the manufacturer will tell them, well, the sell by is also set by the manufacturer, but the use by is set by the manufacturer as far as the date that the item will go bad. Not may go bad, will go bad. The best by date is always the trickiest one. Best by is just what it means. If you eat it by this date, that is the best moment, the best potency, the best freshness you will get it. It doesn't mean necessarily that you cannot eat it after that date. It just means that if you eat it or use it, like we're talking about medications, if you use it after that date, it's not as potent. So that's what a best by date means. I have examples of a BIUB chart here, and then I have example of a Julian calendar here. With a Julian calendar, you would go to the code on the can or code on the product. And so if the code says 061, you know that it is March 2nd. So that's the day it was produced. You go to the BIUB and you find out how much time do you have from production date to best if used by. And that's the date that you go by and you write on your product to show that that's the date you have to use it by. Effect of the law on food liability. The laws have given uniformity to the practices followed by food establishment. They assist those that need guidance. They prevent incidents causing illness or death, protecting the public. assist in the traceability of where certain food items come from, allowing a public recall concern to be issued, creates a clear action to take on the responsibility of contamination. Here, I also added a clip of a picture of the danger zone that food will go through if you are cooling or heating or cooking food. So these are the things that you want to avoid. But every food should take 1 or 2 trips through the danger zone from heating to cooling, not multiple. If you go through the danger zone too many times, you're going to grow microorganisms within that food item and more likely to get sick. And if food sits in a danger zone for too long, you will grow microorganisms and get sick. Big six foodborne illnesses: norovirus, hepatitis A, E. coli, salmonella, another version of salmonella, shigella. We also have listeria. How to prevent? First and most important thing, wash your hands. Make sure you get in between your fingers, under your nails. You make sure you're not wearing any jewelry that the microorganisms can live or breathe or notch themselves into. These are the most important things that you can do to prevent spreading diseases. If you are sick, wear a mask or do not cook. If you have no choice but to cook, wear a mask, wear some gloves. Norovirus, that comes more from you being sick and you breathing over the food or cooking food, and you're just breathing can go into the food and implement microorganisms being grown and making other people sick. Hepatitis A, E. coli, salmonella, and shigella, these come from the food being contaminated ready. Most of the time it is from eggs with salmonella. You have salmonella in some vegetables. You have E. coli, and a lot of times coming from vegetables. Um, so you want to be careful with those things. Make sure your vegetables are not rotten or rotting. If they're supposed to be very hard, but they feel very soft and squishy, cut that part off and throw it away. Do not consume it. Same thing with your fruit. This chart shows how many number of illnesses have occurred, 90% credible interval, and the true percentage. This right here shows the chart of production, processing, transport, and consumption of different types of things. And then right here we have a picture of bacteria. This is what they look like under a microscope. Bacteria, archaea, fungi, algae, protozoa, viruses. These things can be in your food if you have it sitting in the danger zone or if it came from a place where it was already infected. Types of pathogens. These are microbes, these are the pathogens. Pathogens, you can have bacteria, which is the E. coli, viruses, the herpes simplex, fungi, death cap mushrooms, protozoas, Giardia lamblia. These are different things that can get into our food and cause different kinds of sicknesses. This is my recap. September is Food Safety Awareness Month. You do not have to work in the food industry to practice safe food safety. Even at home, unsafe practices can have deadly consequences. Let's all cook and serve better, especially to our loved ones. Food safety regulations in the U.S. are overseen by the FDA and the USDA with the support of FSMA legislation. FDA regulates most foods and ingredients. USDA regulates meat, poultry, and certain processed egg products. FSIS regulates safety in the food industry and gives space for food industry professionals to voice their opinions. Also, with September being Food Safety Awareness Month, I would encourage everyone to go to the USDA and the FDA website and check out all of the activities that they have available for you during Food Safety Awareness Month that you can practice at home with your family. Thank you. Here are my references.